Look, if you're tuning into this right now, chances are you are moving incredibly fast. As a founder or a high-performance professional, your days are probably defined by relentless activity, high stress, and an inbox that literally never sleeps. Sound familiar? But let's be honest for a second. Despite all of that forward motion, you might be feeling a really stubborn lack of true strategic traction. Well, welcome to this explainer. I want you to treat the next few minutes as an exclusive executive briefing. It's designed specifically to help you step off that treadmill and finally regain your leverage. You do not have a work ethic problem. You have a leverage problem. I really need you to internalize this right away. The bottleneck holding back your next major product pivot or the friction you're hitting as you try to scale your team, it's rarely about how hard you work. It's about how clearly you think. Grinding harder is a tactical response, but we are here today to build a strategic one. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The founder's leverage problem, 2. Building cognitive infrastructure, 3. 9 strategic decision lenses, and 4. Your decision-making OS. Let's dive in. Part 1. Building cognitive infrastructure, moving from grinding to leverage. To actually make this transition, we have to establish what we call the clarity phase. You know, relying purely on your default gut intuition, actually, scratch that. Relying on just your gut got you this far. But to scale, you absolutely need repeatable frameworks. It's time to completely reframe how we think about mental models. Forget the dry academic theories. Think of them instead as a highly practical, shock-absorbing pre-flight checklist for your brain. It's like this. A commercial pilot wouldn't just jump into the cockpit and fly a 747 based on a hunch, right? So why on earth would you navigate a complex team scale-up without checking your own cognitive instruments first? Part 2. 9 strategic decision lenses, the rapid-fire toolkit. We're going to move fast here. For each of these lenses, I'm going to hand you a strict 3-minute protocol that you can deploy immediately to slice right through any business complexity. We start with lens number 1, inversion. The core premise here is refreshingly simple. Avoid stupidity first, pursue brilliance second. Imagine you are executing a massive, company-defining product pivot. Instead of sitting in a boardroom asking the standard question, okay, how do we win? Inversion forces you to flip it entirely. You ask, what would guarantee our absolute failure? So here is your 3-minute protocol. First, frame out catastrophic failure for this specific initiative. What does total disaster look like? Second, list 5 to 7 specific failure modes. Maybe it's a huge key person dependency, or maybe your sales incentives are completely misaligned. Third, write down 1 concrete mitigation for each. By mapping out the entire landscape of failure before you execute, you prevent some incredibly costly real-time lessons. The crucial question you always have to ask is, and then what? Which brings us to lens 2, second-order thinking. What happens the moment you make a decision? And more importantly, how does your team or the market react? Let's say you pivot the product. Awesome. But does your current sales team actually have the skills to sell the new version? Because if they don't, your brilliant pivot just nuked your quarterly revenue. This specific protocol prevents your decisions from creating a massive cascade of operational cleanup down the line. Now, to stop lazily copying what your competitors are doing, you need lens 3, first principles. You have to strip a problem all the way down to its undeniable truths. State your current constraint, ask what is structurally and economically true regardless of the so-called industry standard, and then ask yourself, if I built this completely from scratch today, what would I do? Doing this breaks you right through those annoying performance ceilings because you're reasoning from reality, not just from analogy. Now, figuring out those gaps leads perfectly into lens 4, circle of competence. If you want to scale effectively, you must map out your asymmetric advantage. I'm talking about the specific area where you have 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. If a critical task during your startup pivot falls completely outside that circle, you don't just try harder, no way. You explicitly define the exact talent needed to close that gap. You absolutely must operate ruthlessly inside your edge and delegate the rest. When it comes to inputs versus outputs, we apply lens 5, the Pareto principle. You've probably heard this one. Roughly 80% of your strategic outputs come from just 20% of your inputs. But this is a heavy premise because it demands aggressive focus. It's what separates the vital few from the useful many. The protocol for this is totally surgical. List your current inputs, whether that's product features, marketing channels, or client verticals. Estimate which ones drive disproportionate revenue or growth. Then, mercilessly elevate that top 20% and prune, kill, or outsource the rest. If you want true leverage, you have to cut the noise. Let's talk team dynamics for a second. Consider the stark contrast between malice, like actual bad intent, and poor systems. This is Lens 6, Hanlon's razor, and it is a literal lifesaver for team scaling. It states that you should never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained by poor systems, structural friction, or just simple miscommunication. So, when a team member totally drops the ball or acts counter to your interests, use this protocol. Write down 3 non-malicious explanations right away. Then identify the systemic process failure that actually caused the mess. This protocol gives you something invaluable: emotional clarity. It stops you from going down the rabbit hole of retaliatory cycles based on misdiagnosed intent, and keeps your focus exactly where it belongs, on upgrading your broken systems. Remember, every single choice carries a hidden cost. That brings us to Lens 7, opportunity cost. You need to routinely ask yourself, if I don't do this initiative, what is the highest ROI use of my time instead? You have to treat your executive attention as strictly finite. Tricking yourself into thinking you can do it all is the fastest way to completely stall your scalable growth. You've got to choose the path with the highest net yield, even if it's uncomfortable. And to manage the inherent uncertainty in all of this, you deploy Lens 8, margin of safety. Build a shock-absorbing buffer right into your plans. This is the absolute essence of intelligent decision-making under uncertainty. You have to ensure that one bad pivot or one market downturn doesn't collapse the entire company. In your 3-minute protocol, define the worst-case, plausible scenario. Ask yourself, if this actually happens, can we recover operationally and financially? If the answer is no, you redesign the plan to absorb that shock before you deploy a single dime of capital. This acts as a shield, protecting the leverage you've already painstakingly built. Finally, we compile all of these into Lens 9. Probabilistic thinking. Instead of agonizing over binary success or failure, you start thinking in bets. Frame your base, best, and worst-case scenarios. Assign a rough percentage likelihood to each, and multiply them to find the expected value. Doing this keeps you perfectly calibrated. It completely prevents those wild, exhausting swings between startup euphoria and absolute despair. Part 3. Your decision-making OS, deploying the preflight checklist. Okay, take a breath here. You do not need to memorize all 9 of these lenses today. The whole goal is to build your own customized decision-making operating system. You do that by selectively deploying the exact preflight checklist you need for your specific bottleneck. Let's map out exactly what to deploy. If your current bottleneck is scaling a business and navigating hidden team risks, deploy Inversion paired with your margin of safety. What if you're a professional trying to rapidly increase your strategic influence? Deploy the Pareto principle and opportunity costs so you can ruthlessly prioritize. And if you're executing a major pivot in a high uncertainty environment, combine second-order thinking with probabilistic thinking. It's a matching game. You match the specific tool to the exact friction point you are experiencing right now. So I want to leave you with this final challenge. Before your next major strategic move, before you send that sweeping company update or allocate that huge budget, force yourself to answer these 3 questions. 1, which lenses actually apply here? 2, what did my default intuition completely miss? And 3, based on that new data, what is the single highest leverage move I can make right now? The tools are right in front of you. The only question left is, are you going to just keep grinding, or are you finally ready to build your leverage?